Bear down. Josh Sweat is not practicing with the Cardinals. He is not at OTAs, and according to Kyle Odegaard, the official Cardinals insider, he has not been particularly happy out there in the desert. 12 sacks last year, a Super Bowl ring, 29 years old and in his absolute prime. And Ryan Poles has a window open right now to bring him to Chicago for the price of a day 2 pick. But there is something in Sweat's numbers that nobody is talking about, something that completely flips the argument on whether this move is worth it or not. And I am breaking that down in a minute. Because while that is happening, there is an analyst out here calling for the Bears to trade T.J. Edwards. T.J. Edwards, the man with 719 tackles over 7 seasons. And the argument sounds smart on the surface, but it has got a hole in it so big that once you see it, you are not going to believe somebody actually put that in writing. And to close it out, Brad Biggs from 104.3, the score just dropped what is basically a public ultimatum on Kyler Gordon. $21 million guaranteed, only 3 games played last year, and a soft tissue issue that is still not resolved while the rest of the team is already on the field. The question is not whether the Bears are worried. The question is how much longer they can wait before that worry turns into a decision that nobody in the Windy City wants to see coming. Let's talk about the problem that nobody at Hollis Hall wants to say out loud, but everybody can clearly see. This team does not have a pass rush. Not enough of one. Not the kind you need to win in January. And that, with Caleb Williams in his 3rd year and a championship window wide open, is not a minor detail. That is a fire alarm going off. Last season, the Bears finished tied for the 7th fewest sacks in the entire NFL. 7th fewest. And that wasn't bad luck or a statistical accident. That was the direct result of not having an elite edge rusher who forces opposing offensive coordinators to adjust their protection schemes. When the quarterback doesn't feel pressure, he plays comfortable. When he plays comfortable, he picks defenses apart. It's that simple. And right now, Ben Johnson's answer to that problem is basically this. Trust that Dayo Odeyingbo, Shamar Turner, and Austin Booker take a step forward in 2026. Those 3 combined for 5.5 sacks last year. Booker was responsible for 4.5 by himself, which means Odeyingbo and Turner, together, across an entire NFL season, contributed exactly 1 sack. 1. That's not a depth role. That is near total absence. And the head coach is betting that with better coaching, that trio suddenly becomes a real threat. Look, I believe in player development, but there are things coaching simply cannot manufacture out of thin air. The explosiveness of an elite pass rusher is not something you diagram on a whiteboard at Hollis Hall. Now enter Josh Sweat. And fam, the timing of this story could not be better. Cardinals insider Kyle Odegaard reported that Sweat is not showing up to Arizona's OTAs and that he's been hearing for a while that Sweat is, quote, not particularly happy in Arizona. He didn't get into the exact reasons, but the dots connect themselves. Sweat has no guaranteed money on his contract after this season. Arizona is in full rebuild mode, which means this former Super Bowl champion is probably looking at being on a losing team in 2026. And for someone who knows what winning feels like, that stings. Now look at Sweat's numbers because these are what make this conversation serious. 12 sacks last season, a career high. In the last 4 years, he's posted 8 or more sacks in 3 of them, including 11 back in 2022. He has a Super Bowl ring, multiple playoff trips, 29 years old, which in edge rusher terms is the perfect age, still in his prime, but with enough film to understand how this game works at the highest level. He's not a project. He's a finished product. And here's the detail that gets me most excited about all of this. If you put Josh Sweat opposite Montez Sweat on that defensive line, pause, y'all don't understand, that is an entirely different conversation. Montez Sweat already showed he can be disruptive when he has support. Last year he was alone, completely alone on his side. Teams could double him, put chips on him, and have zero concern about the other edge because they knew nobody else was coming. With Josh Sweat on the opposite side, that's over. Suddenly, you have 2 pass rushers that offensive coordinators have to respect simultaneously. That frees up Montez, that opens lanes for linebackers coming on blitz packages. That makes the entire defense harder to attack and scheme against. And the criticism I have to make here, and I think it's important to say it clearly, is this. Ryan Poles already had the Max Crosby conversation. Dan Widerer at The Athletic reported the Bears checked in on him, but never made an aggressive push, never offered the 2 first-rounders it would have taken. And look, I understand that decision from a cap management angle and not wanting to mortgage the draft future, but if the answer to not being able to pay the Crosby price is simply doing nothing and trusting internal development, that's not strategy. That is inaction dressed up as patience. And the difference matters enormously when you're in a championship window. Josh Sweat probably costs a day 2 pick, according to Bleacher Report. That is manageable. That is a price that makes sense, given the problem it solves. And if Arizona is motivated to move him because he himself doesn't want to be there, the price could come down even further. Poles has to make that call. He needs to be on that phone with Monty Austinfort in Arizona right now, not in August, right now. Because if another team gets ahead of him and acquires Sweat, and then the Bears lose in the playoffs due to lack of pass rush again, that inaction is going to be the headline of the 2027 offseason. This is my position, and I'm standing on it. The Bears have the quarterback, they have the offensive coordinator, they have the talent at skill positions. The only broken link left in the chain toward a Super Bowl is that second edge rusher who puts real pressure on the other side of the line. Josh Sweat is available. He wants out, and his numbers justify the investment. Ryan Poles, the ball is in your court. Bear down and make the call. Au pied. Let's shift gears, because there's another story making the rounds in Bears Twitter this week that honestly gave me a physical reaction when I read it. Jacob Infante, over at PFSN, named TJ Edwards as a surprise trade candidate. And the argument he used has a surface-level logic that sounds smart until you actually examine it closely. Basically, it goes like this. The Bears want more speed on defense. Edwards doesn't fit that speed profile. His linebacker impact score dropped to 77.1, which is the worst it's been since 2020. He has coverage issues, and some linebacker-needy team could offer a day 3 pick to take him off Chicago's hands. Let's break that down piece by piece, because every part of that argument has a direct answer. First, the coverage issues. Real. I'm not going to deny them. Edwards is not a coverage linebacker. He never was, and nobody at Hollis Hall hired him for that. His value has always been as a physical, smart linebacker who cleans gaps, makes tackles at the line of scrimmage, processes offensive formations faster than almost any other linebacker in the league, and serves as the voice of that defense when Dennis Allen needs the second level to be coordinated and communicating. 719 career tackles across 7 NFL seasons. That number does not belong to a player who is a liability. Second, the 77.1 impact score. There is critical context that Infante conveniently leaves out. Edwards played in only 10 games last season. 10. He battled injuries throughout the regular season, returned in Week 14, played through the wildcard game, and then fractured his fibula in that contest. A player operating injured and out of rhythm for an entire season is going to see his numbers fall. That is not an indicator of decline. That is an indicator that he played through pain all year long. The difference is enormous, and it matters a lot when you're evaluating his future value. Third, the trade itself. Imagine for a moment the Bears actually make this move. They already cut Tremaine Edmonds this offseason, and now you're trading the other starting linebacker. Who plays? Devin Bush starts? Sure. But the second spot falls to DeMarco Jackson, a guy with 4 career starts. 4. And the depth behind that is Ruben Hippolyte, Noah Sewell, Nephi Sewell, and rookie Keyshawn Elliott. None of those players have proven they can be reliable every down starters in the NFL. That's not depth. That is pure vulnerability, right in the middle of your defense. And there's one more factor that makes this trade nearly impossible right now, even if the Bears wanted to do it. Edwards is still recovering from that fractured fibula. He's been saying all the right things, told reporters in April he feels great and will be ready for training camp. But no team with common sense is going to offer even a day 3 selection for an injured linebacker they haven't seen on a practice field yet. The market simply does not allow for it. My real criticism here is directed at the speed narrative the Bears are building around their defense. Yes, Dennis Allen wants more speed at the second level. That's legitimate. But there is an enormous difference between wanting more speed and sacrificing your best tackler and defensive leader for a 7th-round pick dressed up as a day 3 selection. The right solution is not moving Edwards. The right solution is finding the fast linebacker who complements Edwards, not one who replaces him. That is intelligent roster construction. The other option is demolishing foundations that are still holding up the building. Edwards stays in navy and orange. And if anyone in that organization is genuinely entertaining this idea, I hope someone in that conference room stands up and says exactly what I just said. And to close things out, let's talk about the most uncomfortable conversation of the Bears offseason. Kyler Gordon. Brad Biggs on 104.3. The score said it without any sugarcoating, and you've got to give him credit for the clarity. If Gordon has another injury-wrecked season, it is very hard to see the Bears bringing him back. And that, fam, is basically a public ultimatum delivered through a Chicago radio station. The context stings if you're a Gordon fan. This was one of the best nickel corners in the entire NFL when he was healthy. Quick, smart in-zone coverage, capable of covering fast slot receivers without help over the top. He proved it. But that was a while ago now. Last season he played in only 3 games. Groin, hamstring, calf, all of it together, all of it stacking up, all of it keeping him from being the player the Bears paid for. $21 million in guaranteed money. And that guaranteed money runs out at the end of this season. That is not a minor detail. That is the real conversation happening behind closed doors at Hollis Hall right now. And according to the latest reports, Gordon isn't even at OTAs because that soft tissue issue still hasn't been resolved. That's concerning not just for what it means for this season, but for what it says about his ability to keep his body on the field across a full 16 or 17-week season plus playoffs. Because, look, the groin, the hamstring, and the calf are not contact injuries that hit you by bad luck. These are injuries that speak to how your muscular system is responding to the physical load of professional football. And when that becomes a repeated pattern, it becomes very hard to ignore. The secondary problem is what this is doing to the Bears' cornerback room overall. C.J. Gardner-Johnson left. Nahshon Wright left. The draft brought in Malik Muhammad out of Texas in the 4th round, originally projected as competition for Tariq Stevenson at the outside corner 2 spot. But if Gordon can't be on the field, suddenly Muhammad has to be considered for the slot role. A 4th round rookie as your starting nickel corner in a year, where this team is pointing at a Super Bowl. That is not the ideal plan, to put it generously. My straight opinion on this: Gordon needs to show up at training camp, stay healthy through the entire summer, and prove during preseason that his body is ready to handle a full NFL workload. If he does that, the Bears have one of the best secondary trios in the conference with him, Tariq Stevenson and Jalen Johnson working together. That group is genuinely dangerous, but if he can't do that, the conversation next offseason is not going to be a pleasant one for anyone involved. And that guaranteed money expiring at the end of this year is the clearest signal that the organization is already thinking through that scenario very carefully. This is the story getting the least attention in Bears Twitter this week, bro. But it might be the one with the most real impact on this defense's performance in 2026. Pay attention to this one. 3 stories. An edge rusher available right now that the Bears need desperately. A linebacker who isn't going anywhere no matter what the analysts say. And a cornerback literally racing against his own body to have a future in the Windy City. This team is one decision away from being genuinely terrifying for the rest of the NFC. Ryan Poles knows it, Ben Johnson knows it, and everyone watching this knows that call to Arizona has to happen. If you made it all the way here, you're already part of this. Drop a like, hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell me down in the comments. Do the Bears go get Josh Sweat, or do they keep rolling the dice on internal development? Bear down, fam. See you in the next one.